self-organizing politics. So let's take a look first at the world of business. Business used to be extremely hierarchical. The factory in the industrial age was the prototypical example of that. It was command structure, command and control, organizational structure. Everything is predefined in terms of what the roles are, very long job descriptions and repetitive behaviors, lack of creativity in the name of efficiency. And that has given way increasingly to self-deterministic tendencies as organizations have become more complex. As organizations became global, they needed to be more iterative. They needed to have more change in order to function appropriately, productively. So the ability to make decisions on the ground became more and more critical. The same thing is potentially happening over time in politics. I say potentially over time because it's not well recognized, so it hasn't been well implemented, but most political movements have had a decentralized element, if not organizing principle, such that there's a swarm mentality. If you study complex systems and swarm intelligence, then it'll give you greater insight into that, but it's kind of intuitive as well. So for political self-organization, you have to be effective, there has to be some modicum of guidance or parameters to provide minimal structure, but it has to be extremely flexible and adaptive. Like, it's said in business that if the objectives are well defined, then how those objectives are accomplished is secondary. Like, if you give out people autonomy towards creating the objectives jointly, collaboratively, so that they buy into them. The same is true in politics. People have to have buy-in and collaboration, and there has to be some degree of autonomy about how people are going to accomplish the goals that have been set. Now, it brings up kind of the idea of accountability. Now, if it's if it's a bottom-up process, then accountability has a totally different meaning, perhaps, because it's much more self-deterministic in terms of whether you're autonomous or not. But if the goals are collaborative, meaning that it's kind of a top-down and bottom-up process at the same time, where both kind of infuse the other, maybe the top more with resources and the bottom with actions and ideas. Some of this is just off the top of my head because there's a lot of interplay here, so how the specifics are worked out is not exact science, but the general principles do apply. So if there's some kind of collaboration between autonomy, boots on the ground, and resources from the top, and rewarding of resources, and obviously resources are somewhat controlled through the bottom as well because they are manifested, just like in a company. Salesmen tend to, if they're really good, earn the lion's share of income sometimes because they generate the most profit and revenue. So some of the key elements of political self-organization have to do with decentralization, of autonomy, effort, and increasingly rewards.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.